Good morning everybody and welcome in this new video of Learn with Vito. I am Vito and today we will start, I'm so excited, the Maya beginner crash course on YouTube, where I want to show you, really teach you the basics things of Maya, the fundamentals of 3D modeling on Autodesk Maya. It's not hard at all. We will try to make them simpler. First thing you should do is obtain a Maya license. So there are a couple of ways you can do it. The first one is buy an actual Maya commercial license. It's not a cheap thing. It isn't. It is $1,700 a year. But if you pay for 3 years, you get a discount, and it's just $4,000. Yeah, probably you want to choose between those two solutions. The first one is to get a free 30 days trial. That is just free. You create an account and you'll be able to download Maya. Or if you're studying in an authorized Autodesk training center, you can actually ask for a document that assesses that you're actually studying there and send it to Autodesk, and they will give you a 1-year free license for you to use. That's it. Once you have chosen your solution to get a Maya license, you'll be seeing this window. So this window could be intimidating, and it is. I remember myself the first time I opened Maya being intimidated by this window, but it's not, and we will try to make it simpler as said. So what I want you to do is just focus on the tools we will actually using without throwing at you all the things you should know just because we have to go fast. No, we will go slow and watch all the tools we will be using as much as needed. The first thing I want you to focus on is this menu here. This is a menu. Those menus are called shelves, and in the shelves you find a number of tools. Well, you don't really need to go through all of them. You just need to stick with the poly modeling shelf. More precisely, you should just look at those 7 icons to this divisor here. So those are geometric primitives. Are the most basic thing in 3D modeling and in 3D world. We have a sphere, cube, a cylinder, a cone, torus, and plane, and so on. What I want you to do is click on the polygon cube. So by clicking on the polygon cube, something happened, isn't it? Something here in this gray space, gray area has been created, and there's a cube. So this gray area you can see here with a grid inside is called the viewport. So the viewport is where all your 3D objects are created, and not just objects, but lights and things like that. But let's stick with the objects. So how can we move into the viewport? So we have our mouse and we have our keyboard, and the only thing we have to press on the keyboard is the Alt button and switch between right mouse button, left mouse button, and middle mouse button. So if we go with the Alt right mouse button, you'll see we'll be able to zoom in and zoom out into the scene. If we press Alt and left mouse button, we will be able to rotate around the viewport. And if we press Alt and middle click mouse button, we'll be able to pan around the viewport. This movement is called panning. Now we can move into the viewport, but we want to move also the cube, isn't it? So we just created our cube and we want to move it. To move it, we have this handy toolbox here. It's called toolbox with a number of tools. The only tools we will need to move our box is the select tool, the first one, the move tool, the fourth one, the rotation tool, and the scale tool. So as you can see, every time we hover one of those tools, it really doesn't matter which one is, you got a brief explanation of what the tool does and how to quickly select it. So we have the Q tool, the move tool that is W, the rotation tool that is E, and the scale tool that is R. The selection tool only helps us selecting elements and objects into the scene. So if I click on a empty space into the viewport, nothing is selected. If I click on the cube, it will select the cube. How do I know if the cube has been selected? Well, it's highlighted in green. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? So if I select the cube and then I click on a blank space, the cube is unselected. If I click the cube again, I got the cube selected again. That's great. Now I want to move the cube because we want to move things around, and if I want to move the cube, I have to press on the move tool, or I can press the W button on my key. So remember, the selection tool is the Q button, and the move tool is the W button. Q button, W button. That's great. So when as soon as I press the W button, what happens is, oh, glitched. What happens is that those arrows are being shown onto my viewport, and what those arrows mean? We are in a 3D space, so we have axes, and those axes are the Y-axis, the X-axis, and the Z-axis. How do I know that those are the axes I'm actually telling you guys? Is that in the down left corner of the viewport, you see you have the visual representation of those axes. So green is Y, and as you can see, whenever I click on an axis, it becomes yellow because it's selected, just to tell you, hey, I'm selected. The blue arrow is the Z, the red arrow is the X. So if I want to move something on the X-axis, I just click on the arrow and drag, or using my left mouse button, or I can click on the arrow and using my middle click button, I can move it. So it's the same, left mouse button and drag it, middle mouse button and drag it. It's the same as soon as it is selected. So if I want to move something on the Y-axis, sorry, I just click on the Y-axis and move it. Same thing for the Z-axis. So I'm rotating around, pressing Alt, left mouse button, and I can move my axis around, pressing them and dragging the direction into the direction I want. As you may notice, we don't only have this axis on the in the viewport. We also have those colored squares, and also another square here. Maybe you didn't notice this one, but this is a square as well, an handler as well. What are those useful for? Well, if we want to move on the X-axis, it's not a problem at all. We just click on the X-axis and move it. But what if we want to move in the X-Y axis? Well, we have to click on this blue square here. And you may have noticed that whenever I move something, those attributes are updating. So now I know that I'm moving into the XY axis. Look at here, because those are the numbers that are updating. And if I want to move only on the X axis, I just move on the red axis, and so on. And if I rotate, I can see that the Y Z axis handler is appearing, so Y and Z, and also the X and Z. Here we go. So that's great. We don't want to use this attribute editor yet, just because we don't want to add complexity to this tutorial, and we just leave it as it is, just a visual representation of what we're doing with the hour axis. The other tool I want to show you is the rotation tool, or rotate tool, and the shortcut is the E. So remember, Q for the selection tool, W for the move tool, and E for the rotation tool. As soon as I click on the rotation tool, the gizmo, this is how those axis representation onto the object is called gizmo. So as soon as I click on the rotation tool, the gizmo changes and becomes rounded, not just circles that are intersecting between each other. And those are just the same thing as the translation axis we just saw. If I want to rotate around the Z-axis, I can click on the blue circle here and rotate around. And as you can see here, the rotate Z value is updated. And it's just a bit different, because you might think that if I want to rotate on the Z-axis, I should use this one, because no, it doesn't work that way. It just, you have those axes passing through the object, and if I want to rotate around the Z-axis, I have to rotate around the Z-axis, not clicking the same handles. So makes sense probably. Well, and if I want to rotate around the Y-axis, I can just click on the green axis and rotate around it. As you may notice now, we are rotating around different axes. Hi there, Vito from the future here, just to explain you why while rotating around the Y-axis, where the result is a rotation around multiple axes. The problem is that here what we're seeing are the world axis, and when we're rotating around the object, we're actually using the world axis and not the object axis. So the Y axis we're actually handling as the world axis and not the object axis. We will see how to handle precisely the object local transformations later on in the course, but just bear with me that when you rotate around this green circle, you're rotating around the epsilon world axis and not the y, sorry, not epsilon, not the y local object axis. So it could be quite confusing at the moment, but just, you know, keep it easy. Blue is Z, red is X, and green is Y. Thank you. If I zero out X and Z, and if I just rotate around the Z axis, the epsilon axis, as you can see, only the epsilon axis is updating. Okay, so we have X axis, Z axis, and epsilon axis. The last tool I want to show you is the scale tool. So we Q, W, E, and R. R is the shortcut of the scale cube or the scale tool. So let me zero out everything here. You can go one by one onto those attributes, double click here, oops, double click here, double click here. It's not working. Why it's not working? Oh, my glitched, sorry. So I can just click here, 0, 0, 0, and the cube will go back to its initial position. And I want to scale it to make it bigger. So to make it bigger, we can just use our gizmo here, as we did till now. And if I want to make it bigger on the x-axis, I just click on the x-axis and drag. If I want to make it bigger on the z-axis, I can just click on the z-axis and drag. If I want to make it bigger on all axes, as you may notice, we can just click on the middle square, middle cube, and just drag it. That's it, we're scaling it. And if I want to make it taller on the y-axis, I can just move it that way. I zoomed out from the cube using my mouse wheel, or you can use the Alt right click button. So what we have seen is, of course, we can scale using middle color squared on both axes. So as we have seen, we can create a cube. So to create a cube, we can click here on the poly modeling shelf. We can also create a sphere. I invite you to explore those things. We can create a sphere. We can move the sphere around. We can move it on the XY axis. We can rotate the sphere on the X axis, on the Y axis, and so on. And we can scale the sphere and pretty much every and each geometry primitives. This is all for the first video because I wanted to keep really short, keep really narrowed in topic, and I really advise you to try scaling, resizing, rotating, moving around things, moving into the Maya viewport, creating geometries, just to test. You can't really break Maya too much just by doing those things. If you want to save, the last thing, if you want to save your scene, maybe because you made, I don't know, like something funny, this is Pinocchio, you can save it, of course, and to save your scene, you can just go onto this file, save scene as, and this window will pop up, and choose your folder, your preferred folder, and that's it. Okay, great. So just play with Maya, try creating geometry primitives, try to move them around, rotating, scaling, select things. You can select one thing at a time at the moment, only because I didn't want to overwhelm you, giving more commands. Okay, so thank you so much. If you liked the video, subscribe, leave a like, and see you in the next video. Bye.